Hi friends, welcome to GT Coding. In this video we are going to continue building our game in JavaScript. So in the last video we had designed this using HTML and CSS, and so here in my style CSS I have just uncommented this animation, and rest all is just as we had in the last video. So I have linked my app.js file over here in my HTML. So we'll go to our app.js and write the logic for our game. So we need to have some variables for this game. So one of the variables is the number that the computer is going to select randomly. So we'll create a variable for that and we'll call it the number, and we'll set it to 0. And then we will have another variable called user guess, which is going to store whatever the user types in over here. Then we are going to have another variable called tries. So that is how many times the user had pressed the guess button before the user arrived to the correct number. So we'll have to also reference some of the HTML elements over here. So we'll create some constants for that. So first of all, the input. So we are going to reference this input over here. So document.getElement by ID and user input. So if we go over here in our HTML, we can see that we have the ID of user input over here, and then we need to reference the guess button. So document.querySelector guess button. So if you don't know how to access the DOM elements, I have a separate video on that. So the next thing is the hint. So const hint is equal to document.getElement by ID, and the ID is hint. And the last thing to reference is the play again button, which is not there in our HTML as of now, but we are going to create it in our JavaScript. So we'll just type const play again equals document.querySelector, and we're going to have a class called play again. So that's it for our constants and variables. So we'll create a function called Init, which is going to initialize this game and reset everything whenever the user presses the play again button, or whenever the user starts playing the game for the first time. So we will create a function called init. So here first of all we will set the value of this input to 0. So we will type input.value equals 0. We'll just call this function over here. So we have this 0, and we also need to set the tries to 0. So every time the user plays this game, the tries variable should be set to 0. Then we will have a hint. So in our hint we will just type hint it is between 1 and 100. So this is a hint over here by default. So the next thing that we need to do is set this variable the number to a value between 1 and 100. So we have to randomly select a value. So we'll just type the number, and there's a method in JavaScript called random, which is in the math object. So we'll use that. So Math.random, and it will select a random number. So we will just check what random number we are getting. So we will use this hint over here to just see it temporarily. So hint.innerHTML equals the number. So here we can see we have this number 0.101 and so on. If we save it again, we get another number. So if you notice over here, you can see that we are getting random numbers between 0 and 1. So this is not what we want. We want a number between 1 and 100. So what we need to do is multiply it by 100 and we'll select this whole thing and add 1 to it, so that we get a number between 1 and 100. So since we are multiplying by 100, we get a value between 0 and 99, and if we add 1 to it, we get the values between 1 and 100. So if we save this, we see that we get these values 62, 78 and all. But the problem is we also have these decimal numbers over here. So to get rid of that, we have a method in JavaScript called floor. So it is also in the math object, so math.floor, and we will include this in the parentheses. And if we save it again, we can see we get random numbers between 1 and 100, and we don't have any decimal numbers. So the random number is working, and now we'll move to the next part of the game, that is the guess button. So we will add an event listener for our guess button. So we'll type guess button dot add event listener, and we will listen for the click event, and in that we will check for the guess that the user has made. So we will create this function right now. So I'll just type function check guess, and in here we will type the logic for checking whether the user is correct or not. So first of all, we have to increase the tries. So we'll just type tries plus equals 1, and so every time the user presses the guess button, the tries variable will be increased, and we have to check whether the number is greater or smaller than the actual number that the computer has selected. So here we will type if parse int input dot value is greater than the number, then for our hint we have to say hint it is smaller than, and we have to plug in the number over here, so input dot value. So what we are doing over here is that we are checking for this input value, and since this is a string variable, we have to convert it to an int. So we are using this parse int method, and we are checking this value with the random number that was selected by the computer, and if this number is greater than this random number selected, then we will have a hint called it is smaller than your number over here. So we will have an else if condition. So else if it is smaller than that, so input dot value is smaller than the number, then in our hint, in our HTML, we will say it is larger than and the number. So if both are not the case, then we confirm that the number was indeed the same as this random number selected. So for now, in our hint, we will just say u1. So we are going to delete this later, but for now we will just check whether everything is working correctly. So I will also add the random number over here, which we will delete after some time, but just for checking we will add the random number. So we'll give a line break, and here we will say the number, and we'll just copy this same thing and put it over here. So now we will check whether this function is working correctly. So we have a random number 49 selected by the computer, and here we will type a number 35 and press on guess. So here we can see that it is larger than 35. So it is indeed larger than 35. So we have 49 over here, so 35 is smaller than 49. And if we type a larger number, for example 85, we can see that it is smaller than 85. And if we type 49 and press on guess, we see that u1. So our basic logic is working correctly. So we'll also check for our tries whether it is increasing or not. I will also add the tries variable over here. Copy this and paste it over here. So we have this number 18. So if we enter 15 over here and guess, so we can see that it is larger than 15 and the number is 18, and the tries is increased, so it is increased to 1. And if we say, for example, 52 and guess, we have this tries variable increasing and the hint is also being displayed correctly. So the logic is working correctly and the tries variable is also increasing. So now here we will remove this over here and we are going to create our winning screen. Here we will type display winning message. This is the this is the function that we are going to create. So here we will create the function display winning message. So here we are going to create some HTML elements using JavaScript. So first of all, we will type const u1 and say document dot create element, and we are going to create a div element, and in that we are going to add a class called u1. So we had already created that in the last video. So this is the class that we are going to add to our HTML element. So u1 dot class list dot add and u1. Then we are going to create an h2. So winning message equals document dot create element and h2, and for that we are going to add a class called winning message, and we are also going to add some text inside that. So winning message dot inner HTML, and it will be input dot value, that's the number, and then we are going to have a line break. Then we are going to have tries, and here the variable tries, and in the h2 we are going to have the correct number and this message, that's the number, and then we are going to say tries and the value of tries that the user had. So this h2 should be inside this u1 division. So for that we will just type u1 dot append child, and in that we will just type winning message. So with this line of code we are making this h2 a child of this division. So now we are going to create the play again button. So const play again button, and we will say document dot create element, and it will be a button, and we will add a class called play again. So play again button dot class list dot add and say play again, and we will also add the text play again dot inner HTML equals play again, and we will add an event listener, add event listener, and it will be a click event listener, and the function is gonna be called play again, and we will append it also to the u1 division. So append child play again button, and at last we are going to set the u1 division as the child of the body in our HTML. So we'll type document.body append child and u1. So one more thing that we're going to do is that we are going to disable the click on this guess button when we are on the win screen. So here we will type guess button dot style dot pointer events equals none. Now the last thing that we need to do is create the play again function over here. So we just go over here and type function play again, and here we're gonna delete this whole thing that we created using JavaScript, and we also need to invoke the init function, and we also need to set the pointer options that we set to none, and we have to set it to auto. So these are the three things that we need to do in this play again function. To remove an element, we have to go to the parent of the element. So we'll say parent document dot query selector, and here we will type u1 dot parent node. So this is going to select the parent node of this u1 division, and then we need to say parent dot remove child, and here we will select this u1 division. So I'll just copy this and paste it over here. So this is going to delete our u1 division from our HTML, and then we need to call the init function to reset everything, and we will set the guess button style pointer events to auto. So that's everything that we needed to do in our play again function. So this is pretty much everything that we needed to do in our JavaScript. So I just noticed that we are creating this play again button over here. So const play again button, and we are creating this element over here. So we don't need to have this line of code over here. So we'll just delete it. So one more thing is that I just typed winning over here, and I have to type winning message. So that's pretty much it for our JavaScript. Now we will go ahead and check whether everything is working as we intended. So now let's check our game. So we have the number 87. We'll just type 87 and press on guess button. We can see that 87, that's the number. We have one try, and we'll play again. We have the number 13. We'll say 12. No, the number is larger than 12. If you say 15, the number is smaller than 15. If you say 13, we have got the number correctly. 13, that's the number, and we have the tries as 3. So everything is working correctly. Now the last thing we need to do is remove these numbers from here, because we don't want the user to know the number. So I will just remove this line of code hint from here, and here we are going to just delete all these things, and it will be just the hint and the input value. And we're also going to delete this from here. So now that's pretty much it for our app.js, and we'll just check it once more and see whether everything is working correctly. So I'll just save this, and here first of all we will start with 50. Guess it is smaller than 50. We'll say 25. It's smaller than 25. Say 15. It's larger than 15. Say 20. Larger than 20. We'll say 23. And the last number remaining is 24. Guess, that's the number, and we have had 6 tries. So that pretty much sums our game using JavaScript. So this is also responsive. So if we maximize this, we can see we have a nice winning screen, and the UI is working correctly. And I hope that you have enjoyed this series of 2 videos where we created this game using JavaScript from scratch. So if you have any doubts, you can ask in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. And thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.